It used to be that we fuss and fight on the floor or in committee, but then go out and have a drink or have dinner together.
It's a tale of two legislatures. And all of the time I was in the House, whether you were a Democrat or Republican, you had friends on both sides of the aisle, and you'd kid around together and you'd do things together. And it was, there were issues you disagreed on, but 80 to 90% of the legislation that passes in the legislature is probably true today. It's a bipartisan vote. And one of the reasons that I decided to retire from the legislature was that it just wasn't the same.
You know, when I served, there was a lot of friendly relations between the two parties. You know, when I served, it seemed like, I guess the way to put it, seemed like there were 8 or 10 issues that were partisan issues. Everything else was more rural, you know, versus cities, you know, perspectives, you know, different kinds of perspectives that people had, labor against management, that kind of stuff that went across, you know, different lines and weren't wholly partisan. And everything wasn't wholly partisan. Now it appears to me like everything is partisan. You know, I mean, every decision, you know, to adjourn is a partisan decision. You know, I mean, it just seems that it's gone crazy with regard to making things partisan.
They're making most seats in the legislature and the Congress are one-party seats. There's very few who changed hands. As I mentioned earlier, 44 House seats changed hands in the 1966 General Assembly. That doesn't happen now because because of the money, and the seats are designed for either Republicans or Democrats. The legislators aren't going to give up the control over what seat they occupy and the fact that they can make a seat fit their politics.
The greatest evil of all is gerrymandering, I think, because it is undermining our democracy in such a way that it's perverting the democracy. One of the jobs of the caucus leader is to recruit candidates to run. It's really difficult to recruit candidates to run in a district that's 70% Republican. And so the quality of candidates is driven down. The number of contested races is driven down. And I happen to think that Indiana is slightly Republican. I mean, Obama won Indiana. It's not always all Republican. And so the legislature should reflect that.
I'd say things became probably more partisan as more money was spent on campaigns, more people, they had to, you know, maybe be more beholden to the interest groups that were helping to give them campaign donations and etc.
This arch partisan, this gotcha, this enemy compat. The more blood you can draw, the more your side is pleased that you did it. So there's three things. One, when I ran for the state legislature, I think my campaign in 1974, we might have raised about 16,000, as I recall. And maybe 1,000 of that came from those people in leadership in the Senate who wanted to be the pro tem or the majority leader. And you raised your own money, and you had your own fundraisers, and those people who wanted to influence you in some way may have given you campaign contributions. That started to change when the speaker and the pro tem, the minority leader in each house, started to raise massive amounts of money, millions of dollars, and then turn around and disperse that money to the favored candidates in their party for winning. And you became, as a candidate, dependent upon your parties. That gave the speaker, the president pro tem, the minority leader, in both houses, massive power.
The way the ads are geared toward tearing down your opponent as opposed to building you up. Once you get down to Indianapolis, you said a whole lot of things, and it's a lot harder to say, well, I didn't mean that, but so let's kind of get along. And they've had to work so hard to raise that money. I mean, then you start believing in everything that you said, and you're not going to waver from it. I just think I didn't spend much time thinking about what my opponent was doing. I wanted to tell people what I wanted to do. And there weren't the attack ads, which made, even if you weren't doing it, somebody else is doing it on your behalf now. And so if you beat that person and you think, I had to spend all this time defending myself, and now you want to reach across the aisle, let's be buddies. I mean, I think it's just harder.
Rarely did I have ill feelings or create ill feelings coming the other way from my Republican colleagues. It's just over the last 6 years that what you see on the federal level was at the local level here. That it used to be that we fuss and fight on the floor or in committee, but then go out and have a drink or have dinner together. That changed drastically over the last 6 or 8 years, that it was a total separation and isolation of the parties as it is at the federal level.